Welcome back to Bay State Golf. I'm Sean Melia. Today we are talking about my 5 favorite golf courses that I played for the first time in 2024. Let's get into it. Number 5 on my list this year is Weston Golf Club in Weston, Massachusetts, a private golf course designed by Donald Ross, who shows up a lot in this top 5 and showed up a lot in my top 10 as well. Weston has exceptional greens, which is no surprise because Donald Ross was designing it. However, they felt to me different, and this is what I liked about playing Weston. They felt a little bit different than your usual Donald Ross greens. I think a lot of us think about the Pinehursts, even a place in Massachusetts like Concord, where you just have a lot of severely sloped back to front, maybe more oval shaped, rounded out. Weston had some kind of wild, wacky greens. The 4th green comes to mind pretty quickly. The 1st green even is a nice little intro to the golf course. And then it also has those diabolical Ross greens that if you're above the hole, you might be hitting a 30-yard pitch shot coming back. The 2nd green in particular is a monstrous one at the end of a uphill par 5. Reminds me a little bit of Plymouth's par 5 16th as well. Just you're playing uphill to the green and the ball can end up at your feet if you're not too careful. So I really appreciated just the way the greens were mixed in, how different they felt over the course of the round, but they also still felt like a set of greens. It wasn't like they were concocted and didn't really match. However, that being said, I think the thing that puts this number 5 instead of, farther into my top 5 is the fact that there are some holes that don't quite fit. The 11th and 12th holes, which I believe are not Donald Ross designed or have been tweaked and changed over the years, play on pretty flat land, water running between the two of them, and just kind of stood out to me as holes that don't quite fit the rest of the routing. And then really that kind of matches the middle of the course, 6, 7, 8, 9, super quirky, super funky holes that I don't particularly love. I know some people really like them. I know Weston can be a pretty polarizing golf course in general. Some people really love it. Some people would rather go play anywhere else because of just the way, mainly these 4 holes kind of can drive people crazy. 6 is a short little par 5. You can hit 2 long irons and get up pretty close or onto the green. Hitting drivers can be pretty risky. Anything longer than like a 250-yard, 240-yard shot, you're bringing a lot of trouble into play. Super narrow, not really much better up by the green. So a lot of people kind of don't love that hole. 7 is maybe their signature hole, very picturesque. Blind tee shot again. 2nd shot is really tough depending on where your tee shot ends up. I've played Weston now twice. I played it about 11 years ago and got to go back and play it this summer. And that hole, I've been in the right trees both times and have not really got to appreciate and enjoy the challenge of that 2nd shot. And I'm scrambling to try to just make par or bogey. Green is kind of sitting and slanted inside. It almost feels like it's in the water. Just a kind of a cool hole, probably the best of that little stretch of holes. 8, not really a great hole, super short, drivable, I guess. Green is insanely small and tight. And then 9 is a really tight driving hole. Awesome green. Like 9 is a very cool green. Another one that stands out to me along with 4 just as something that's a little bit different from maybe what you see from Ross in a lot of other places around Massachusetts. So, and then the last thing I liked, just to do my kind of good, bad, good rhythm here, is I do like the way the course is set into little pockets of land. So you play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, feel like a distinct 5 holes. You kind of settle into the round, and then you cross the road and you play 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And those holes feel like they're kind of their own little set of 5 holes. And 10 delivers you kind of away from the quirky, goofy land that 6, 7, 8, 9 live on. 10 is a par 3. Another cool green you're hitting a mid-iron in. And then 11, 12, 13, 14 are their own little set of holes. Probably the weakest of the bunch overall. 14 kind of starts to get you back to where the first 5 holes are, and then you play 15, 16, 17, 18, almost bring you around the clubhouse. And that really is what feels like the most kind of typical classic Donald Ross holes. The greens, especially on those last 3 or 4 holes, are pretty good. 18 is a diabolical green. Overall, reachable par 5 if you hit a good tee shot. But I do appreciate it keeps you engaged. You're moving through different parts of the golf course, and I do like that about Weston. So Weston is my number 5. Number 4 is a public golf course, the only public in this set of 5. I had 2 public golf courses in my top 10, and Miacomet comes in at number 4 for me this year. It is on Nantucket. It is a hard golf course to get to. It is an expensive golf course to play if you'd like to play it in peak season. It costs $270-ish if you want to play it in the summer. Shoulder season gets a little cheaper at $170. If you want to go play it in the winter, which for them runs up until just about the end of April, you can pay $70, and that's when I played it. It was the first course I checked off this year. Made a day trip with my buddy Jameson, and we hopped a ferry. We were home by 8 o'clock that night. We both lived kind of north of Boston, or in Boston on the north side. Golf course is just really good. It hosted a 2021 US Mid-Am alongside Sankaty Head. Sankaty was the main host, and Miacomet played the co-host. So every golfer who qualified for the US Mid-Am got to play 1 round at Miacomet. And for a lot of golfers, it kind of stood up next to Sankaty Head as far as the challenge and their enjoyment and the conditions. Just a really, really good, solid golf course. The first thing I like about Miacomet is the fact that the bunkering is just unique to what you might see in Massachusetts. Some of it's a little bit quirky. You got the kind of rigid, rounded edges. But when we were there, they were working on edging out the bunkers, so you get these sharp edges so balls can roll into them off the fairway. Those bunkers and the wind are kind of the things that create elevation, or the feeling of elevation at Miacomet, because it is a pretty flat piece of land overall. And I think that's maybe the one piece that the bunkers and the wind help kind of make feel less of a problem as you're playing it. So bunkers, wind help with the elevation and make it feel you got to carry bunkers in certain spots. You've got to deal with traps, and it probably changes as the day goes. I would imagine it's a place, if you play it a couple times a summer, or if you're a regular or a member there and you play it regularly, you're probably hitting a bunch of different shots all summer and all fall because of the winds and the conditions and whatnot. The one thing that I didn't particularly like about Miacomet playing it, and this was it was a cold, chilly day. I'd assume on a really hot day in the summer, it has the same effect. The routing, there's some long walks. There's a long walk from the second green to the third tee box. You're walking kind of past the driving range, past the clubhouse, through the parking lot to play 3 through 9. And then from 9 green to 10 tee is another very long walk back kind of past the clubhouse, past the second green. You're walking a long ways again. So there are some long walks. And then on the back 9 in particular, once you get to the 15th tee box, you're taking some funky walks. From 15 green to 16 tee is a long walk. From 16 green to 17 tee is really awkward. You're walking almost backwards half of 16 if you're playing, the back tees or even the one-up tees. You're walking a long way again to play 17. So just some things to think about if you like to walk, which I do. That definitely stood out to me. And then thirdly, Miacomet, as far as another thing I like, the second thing that stood out to me and stands out to me, and everyone says this when I post about it, is the conditions, even in the winter, because of its kind of sandy, firm ground, the place is just challenging and it's in great condition. The greens had just been punched. You can see it in some of the pictures and some of the videos, and they still rolled really nicely. It was not a distraction from the day. I didn't feel like it was a waste of a trip to go play it, even with the greens feeling a bit sandy. They still rolled really true. They still rolled pretty quickly. You didn't want to be above the hole. And I would imagine in the summertime at a $270 clip to play, you'd want the golf course to be in great shape, and it feels like it always is. I went back in July. I did not play. I just practiced. I putted and chipped. They have a huge putting green. They have a driving range, like I said, and they also have just a little short game area, and you can go practice. Even if you're not playing, you just show up, bring some clubs, and just you can work on your game, which is another nice little perk to the place as well. If you are just visiting Nantucket and you want to get some practice in, and you can go play 9 holes at Miacomet for a little bit cheaper, for $50 for 9 holes. Still expensive for 9 holes, but once again, you've traveled to Nantucket. You're paying a premium for most things. So that is my number 4 golf course, Miacomet, the only public in the top 5. Number 3 on my list of the best golf courses I played in 2024 and checked off for the first time is Whitinsville Golf Club in Northbridge, Massachusetts. A 9-hole Donald Ross gem. It is private. It is often ranked in the top 2, 3 9-hole courses in the entire world, and it stands up. It makes complete sense when you go play it. Now, I've played a ton of 9-hole golf courses. Most of them are public, so trying to compare Whitinsville to any of the public golf courses doesn't seem fair. They have private conditioning. They have the private funding to keep the golf course in really great shape, to keep it true to what Donald Ross designed. They've had Gil Hansen there. They've added bunkers. They've done some work to the golf course. So it just is really, really good as far as what you're getting. If you are a guest, it's a place where, as I was driving home to Boston, and I looked at the GPS, and it was just about an hour drive, and I knew that they're still looking for memberships. It's a place that does not have a wait list right now, at least in August when I got to play it. And it would be a place that if I lived a little closer, if I lived 30 minutes away, I would strongly consider joining, because even as a 9-hole golf course, it is outstanding. It is a great test. The first thing for me was just standing on that first hole. You feel like you're playing a championship 18-hole golf course just because of the size and scope of the place and how well conditioned it is and how great it looks. So that's kind of the first thing that just stands out to me. It just all around, the whole thing just feels really solid as a golf course, which I know isn't super particular, but you can just kind of feel it when you're there, when you're standing on the first tee. They are all about the golf there. They have a nice little small pro shop with some great stuff in there. They've got a little bar and a couple tables. You can grab dinner. They have a patio out back, fire pits. It's a very charming place to go and want to play golf. And that's kind of a standout to me. I think one thing that I've noticed with other 9-hole golf courses that I think Whitinsville, I wish had a little bit more of, is just a little bit more difference from the front to the back. They do have a couple different tee boxes. You play the 9th hole, which is kind of their like famous hole, really hard closer. Some would put it up there as one of the better closers in the state, maybe in the region, maybe in the country, as a 9th hole or an 18th hole. Just awesome big cape hole that you've got to kind of bite off as much as you want to chew, and then a totally challenging green. But I wish the 9s played a little differently. And then maybe a bigger gripe is just the false fronts on some of the greens are very severe. There are 3 or 4 greens that are perched high up and have a lot of fall off, and that kind of, I don't love that all the time. It feels like for someone whose short game isn't really good, that would wear on me a little bit there. And then the last thing I would say as far as the good is, I just thought the 9 greens, even though there are some severe false fronts, you're hitting different shots into all those greens. And over 9 holes, it feels engaging, and it feels engaging enough that you want to go and play 9 more holes. It's a course that I could imagine playing 3 times. I could imagine playing from the reds one time and seeing what I could shoot. And just playing a bunch of different ways around that place. It just feels like the options kind of are there as far as if you want to play distinctly different golf. And the greens as a whole are really good. I would imagine that when they are rolling, they are very tough to putt. But I did really like the approach shots hitting into a lot of them. I love the second par 3 as a whole, where it's kind of the only one where you've got like bunkers protecting the front and not kind of an open mouth to try to run the ball up onto. just a really great golf course. I would say my ringing endorsement is if I lived close, I would try to join it. If you live close, you should definitely consider joining it. Just a really good, low-key golf club to be a member at and to play some really, really excellent golf. Number 2 on the list. Some years this would be number 1. For some people, if they're looking at my list, they might put this at number 1. Hyannisport Club in Hyannisport, Mass, down on Cape Cod. I got to play this on my birthday. I got to play it in a member guest. I got to tee off on the first hole of the member guest because they were kind enough to set us up with that experience. So I got to play the golf course as it was designed, first hole through 18th hole. It is golf on the water. The setting is superb. Maybe one of the better ones you can find around here. The clubhouse, you're looking down on the water. You open kind of away from the water, then you play 3 and 4. And you kind of are feeling like, man, I'm playing golf on Cape Cod, which you don't get to feel a lot of playing golf on Cape Cod. There's a lot of inland golf, a lot of tree line golf, and this course does not have that feeling when you get to those holes that are on the water. The 4th hole for me, if I was gonna pick kind of a favorite of the entire year, might be it. In my newsletter, I did pick it as my favorite hole. Just a really tough tee shot, a really good second shot. You're hitting into a tiny green. The 4th hole is probably my first good thing for Hyannis and just the setting in general. I think for me, the thing that I didn't love about it, and I've talked about this when I recapped my September, is just those inland holes. You get away from the water and you kind of lose your bearings. I have the car test is what I call it. If I can get in the car on the drive home, turn down the radio or a podcast or music or whatever I'm listening to, and just spend 5 or 10 minutes going through my round, shot by shot, hole by hole. I got a little bit lost looking through Hyannis in my mind, looking back over it. And it partly happened because of those holes that are inland, away from the water. There's some anchor holes. The 8th hole is a par 3, really good. That kind of helped me. But like 9, 10, 11, and then 12, kind of blend together a little bit. And then you get to 15 is where your brain really kind of reignites again and you remember awesome par 3, beautiful vista, great views. But those middle holes, and it's not to say that they're bad holes, but when you get the dramatics of the start and then 3 and 4 kind of really grabbing you by the collar and then kind of heading inland, they just don't quite stand up and they don't kind of stick in your brain, and you've got to do some work to remember which hole is kind of running away from the water and which hole is running back, because they do run kind of parallel to each other in the middle of the round there. But 8 was an anchor hole, really good par 3. The par 3s in general are really good, and that's kind of the last thing for me that I would say about Hyannisport that I really loved. The par 3s are great. The 17th hole was the hole I picked for my composite course for the year. Really charming little par 3, water, you're teeing off kind of feeling like you're in the water. Just a really great hole. 15 is a good par 3 as well. Again, kind of grabs you by the collar and reminds you you're on Cape Cod and you're playing golf at Hyannisport Club. And then on the front, the 5th hole, another really great setting. You're looking down the 4th after playing the 4th hole from that tee box. To the right, you've got water, really tough green, tough mid-iron. You're playing with the wind. And then 8 visually is a really tricky hole that I also really liked as a par 3. It's like a semi-blind par 3 with some grass in front that you think you have to kind of fly over, but you can play it safe. A lot of balls collect to the right. It's tough to make par from the right side of the green. So par 3s at Hyannisport are also really good. Just a really great experience to go and get to play there. I'd never played there before. I had walked it during the Mass 4 ball and took some photos and watched some buddies play, but I had never gotten a chance to play it, and I really loved it. I thought it was really good. Just wish those kind of inland holes were a little stronger, which is why I have Salem Country Club as my number 1 golf course in Massachusetts that I played this year. Salem Country Club, if you really pinned me down and asked me to make a list of the favorite golf course that I've played of the 142 so far in the last 5 years, Salem Country Club is on the short list of like, this course might be my favorite. I got to play it because I was caddying for my friend Neil, who qualified for the Mass Senior Am. I played a practice round with Neil, and then I got to caddy and see it twice more, walking it in the Senior Mass Am. Just a really great golf course. I had been there for the 1999 or 2002, whenever the U.S. Senior Open was there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but kind of early 2000s, late 90s, the U.S. Senior Open was there. I was also there in the 2010s. I think in 2017, I did not go that year. But it just holds up. USGA, it's a championship feeling golf course. And what I mean by that is it is big, it is brawny, there is space to play. It's kind of one of those places where Donald Ross got the time and the space to build a golf course that wasn't kind of congested into a small piece of land, which seems to be what a lot of golden age golf courses tend to, that's kind of a thing that they have. They have limited space, tiny little driving range. I spoke about Hyannisport Club. They have a tiny little range that's just squeezed between 16, 17, and 18, and you're hitting basically like you can hit 8 irons, maybe. So you get Essex is the same, a tiny little driving range, but Salem has space and it is big. It weaves through the trees. It is kind of your quintessential New England golf. I've talked before about that not always being my favorite when it gets claustrophobic and congested, and Salem does not feel that way. Salem feels like a golf course where there is space, where there is place to play, and that's kind of my first thing about Salem is just, it is a relentlessly strong golf course from 1 to 18. You don't walk off any hole and think, man, that hole stinks. What's going on there? And I think a lot of golf courses, especially in this area, even the really good ones, because of those space limitations, there's something that's crammed in that doesn't feel like it necessarily fits. I think these top 3 that I'm talking about between Salem, Hyannisport Club, and Whitinsville all have that same feeling where you don't really walk off thinking like, man, that hole was kind of a waste, or what was going on there, or what happened there, what did they change? And I think the second at Hyannisport Club is being changed right now. They're putting the original green back to its place, so that might be the one hole of those 3 courses that clearly had something going on that they wanted to change. But back to Salem, it's just relentlessly good. From 1 to 18, you're playing really strong golf. There isn't like a signature awesome hole. That might be the thing that people would knock about it, because Hyannisport has one of those. You could even probably find one at Whitinsville, Miacomet, Essex. They all have like a hole that as you're driving to the golf course, you're thinking about, I can't wait to play this hole. I can't wait to play this shot. There are courses that have a bunch of those. Salem, it's just, I can't wait to play this entire golf course. And I think that's a really valuable thing when you're thinking about where would I want to play. If I was balancing Hyannisport and Salem, I would want to go play Salem because it's just really, really good golf all the way through. With that being said, you have to pick out something that is a negative or something that, isn't perfect about the place, because not every golf course, or not many golf courses, are perfect. There's always things that can be improved. The 9th green for me is the thing that needs to be improved. I've talked about this in my September review as well, so I won't go too far into it. But the 9th green is super severe, sloped really hard from like back left to front right. I watched my playing partners when I got my practice round, and also players in our groups during the Mass Senior Am have balls kind of roll halfway up into the green and roll all the way back down. Approach shots, putts, chips from the back of the green are impossible, which I technically don't mind. Like, I would not complain about a green if it was just, well, you can't go long, because there's tons of those in Massachusetts. It's the fact that you can hit a shot deep into the green with the pin in the back, and your ball can roll all the way off the front of the green, and you're left trying to hit a ball hard enough to get up to that pin, and maybe have the ball roll back to your feet, which happened in the Mass Senior Am to one of the guys in our group. And that just doesn't quite feel right to me. I'm okay with greens being sloped back to front. We play a lot of them around here, and Donald Ross built a lot of them. But that 9th green just feels like it needs to be softened a little bit. The hole as a whole, like the tee shot and the approach, are pretty good. They're fine. The tee shot's kind of blind. You can get some extra yardage because the fairway kind of rolls down to the left, and there's a little collection area where there's fairway. You got to be accurate because it does get kind of narrow with the road on the right and some marshland on the left. So there are some things about the hole that are good and have value, but that approach shot and then the trying to make par or trying to make birdie just doesn't quite feel like it adds up to me as far as just a thing that makes complete sense. So that would be the one thing my one gripe about Salem is just that 9th green. And then the last thing that I just really love about Salem and enjoyed about it is the closing stretch is pretty strong. And, you know, the back 9 in general is really good. 12's a cool par 3. 13's a wild par 4 with maybe one of the wonkiest, fairest greens you're going to find in the state. 9 is not necessarily always fair. 13 is just some crazy undulations. The more you play it, the more it probably drives you crazy because you're thinking about bad shots you've hit in the past. Just awesome. But 15 through 18 as a set of holes, 15 is a par 5 that asks a couple good questions off the tee box because there's a stream that kind of pinches in and then goes underground and comes back up. So you're trying to figure out, do I want to challenge that stream? Do I want to keep it left and kind of shorten the hole? Do I want to just play out to the right and make it a 3-shot hole? It's uphill on that second shot. Just a really, really strong par 5. And then 16, 17, 18 are really good, strong par 4s that are just going to make you work to make 3 pars. And, you know, if you're playing in a tournament, if you're playing with your buddies, those holes definitely decide a lot of matches, and they do so in a pretty fair way. I think they're all good holes. You got to hit different kinds of shots and different irons into each of them for the most part. If you hit good tee shots, and I thought those holes are really good. So that's the 5 golf courses. Just to kind of go through those 5 again, they are Weston Golf Club in Weston, Mass, a private golf course. Miacomet in Nantucket, a public golf course that anyone can go play, and you can play it in the winter. Go steal a day and go check it out. Number 3 was Whitinsville Golf Club in Northbridge, Massachusetts, a 9-hole golf course, one of the best 9-hole golf courses in the world. Number 2 was Hyannisport Club in Hyannisport, Massachusetts. And number 1 was Salem Country Club in Peabody, Massachusetts. Another Donald Ross, another private golf course. I was fortunate enough to play 8 different private golf courses and check those off this year. I also played 16 different public golf courses. Those are obviously easier to check off and get to. I do a lot of driving over the course of the year. If you'd like just a little bit more information about my journey and my quest, I'm looking forward to sharing more here on YouTube, but I also have a Friday newsletter that I send out. You can find that at baystategolf.beehive.com. Every Friday, free newsletter. I share some of my favorites from the week, both on and off the golf course. Do some writing. Might share, just some of my stuff from my quest. In the wintertime, might dig into some professional golf stuff. Might look at some results and share some news about what's going on in competitive golf with Massachusetts golfers. We've got a lot of good ones that are playing all over the country, playing in college, and it's nice to track them too. So that Friday newsletter covers a lot of stuff. And then if you'd like to support my work, you can upgrade to the paid and get access to every post. I usually try to send another one out a week and make some other content that people can get if they are paid and want to just support and maybe help me pay for some gas money to get out to Western Mass next year as I try to play every course in Massachusetts. Thanks again for watching. Please subscribe, like, share what golf courses you loved down in the comments as well. Would love to get a discussion going about the golf courses that you liked and the ones that you would suggest that I try to go play in 2025.